I want to talk a little bit about the dead internet theory because it's something that I think is interesting. And to open up, I'll show you this picture that I found. I just thought it was really interesting. It's on Facebook, so somebody makes this post. And it's a spam account of some variety that makes these posts and generates content with AI. The caption says, "No one likes the poor." And then if you look at this picture, there's a really weird, ridiculous looking picture. It's totally, obviously bad AI. No normal person would look at this and think that it's on topic or think that it's real. Like, you just know, like, this is obviously bad AI. There's nothing realistic or even deceptive about it. And then you look down there and you see we have 136,000 interactions that are engaging with this content, and then another 1.2 thousand comments and 191 shares. So 191 accounts found this picture as worthy of sharing. And that's really eye-opening because it proves something that we maybe have not thought too much about, and that is that there's a lot more bots on the internet than we imagine. And I recall when Elon Musk bought Twitter, he was complaining about how there's too many bots. And I thought, I don't know about that one way or another. I thought maybe that's a gimmick or something, just because he wanted to buy the company for a lower valuation or something like that. But when you see something like that picture, it really just goes to show, like, there's no way, I would think, there's no way that there's a couple hundred people that would have looked at that picture that's really crazy and say, why don't I share that with my friends, right? So the issue of invasive AI, the issue of not being able to tell the difference between truth and fiction because it's so easy to create things which look real but aren't, that's not even the issue here. It is an issue, but that's not the issue. The issue here is that what we have essentially is computers making content and then engaging with themselves. That's kind of what we're on the cusp of. And if that's the case, that's concerning, because it brings us closer than ever before to the notion of a dead internet. The idea that we have moved to a time when there's nothing really new or original on the web. I remember there was a time when Roller Coaster Tycoon, some of those games came out, and they were very popular. And then shortly thereafter, you had a whole lot of other copycat games that would come out, like, I don't know, Hotel Tycoon or Bartender Tycoon or whatever it might have been. There was a tycoon for everything, and it was cool, but the reality was the original had already made the headline, and at that point everything else was just a copycat. And in the end, they weren't really original, because you weren't going to remember those copycat games. You weren't going to ever come back to play them again and again. You were going to look at them, think, oh, that looks kind of cool, and then you'd move on with your life, because they weren't built to stand the test of time. They were created for the purpose of generating content. They weren't created for the purpose of being original or creating quality. And that's something I think we see a lot on the internet today. Probably in the early 2000s, there was a lot more of people creating things that they thought were interesting or funny or unique, and then putting those out on the web. And there was this sense of excitement because on the internet it was easier to create something and then share it with a wider audience. Today, that's more true than ever. It is easy to create something and share it with a broader audience, but it's also easier than ever to share something that you didn't create. And the end result is this sort of a superficial way of looking at the world that we take away from this. It's that sense that people are being friendly on the front side, maybe toxic on the back side. Like that game that brags about having an amazing community, but then if you actually read the reviews from players, you will see that a lot of them say, well, you know, PvP is really toxic, or you know, it's not what the trailer or the dev team crack it all up to be. Well, I think that we have a tendency to hide behind our screens, and we get toxic in some ways because we feel like there's no consequences and there's no accountability. So there's that. And then on the other side, we want popularity, so we always share content that we think is going to generate positive engagement. So what do you have when you have a mixture of this, I guess, a trifecta? You have the desire to create content that people are going to like you for, and you have the desire to be a keyboard warrior, and you have the tendency to not create any new content, but instead just share some variation of existing content, to regurgitate it over and over and over again for likes and views. In a sense, we create that dead internet theory and make it become a reality. So what is the end result here? What is the takeaway from what I'm saying? And I think what it is just we should take time to be authentic. Tell people the truth. Create content which reflects original ideas. Don't just share everything, but instead make an effort to create something new. That's one reason why I tend to enjoy playing games that allow me to create something. Like, let's say that you built a castle in Valheim, or you built a city in Cities Skylines. Well, you share a screenshot of it. It's something that you made. Maybe you didn't design the game, but you did express your own creativity while you were playing it. So it feels a little bit more authentic in some ways than maybe sharing a screenshot of some first-person shooter. Like, you didn't really create anything other than following the same linear path that every other player would follow. That's one thing that's nice about MMOs. Despite the fact they are repetitive, there's also that sense, to a point, that each player has expressed themselves in a unique way. So no one person's play through of the game is going to be completely identical to anyone else's. Some people are min-maxers, some people are very technical about the game, some people play very casually, some people stop and smell the roses, you know. And I think that having a sense of diversity in the type of content that we create and consume is important. Being able to express ourselves, to talk about things that are maybe difficult or challenging or sensitive, and also being able to put ourselves out there enough to create content that's original. I think these things are important. And more, the internet is being filled with a lot of noise. It's easy to just scroll and scroll and scroll through tons and tons of content, an endless amount of content. But how much of that content, in a sense, is real? And I think that that's where, it's even like this with watching the news or something. I find I'm much more interested in watching some independent YouTuber talking about world events than I am in watching MSNBC or something, because you get the feeling that 30-minute clip of nightly news just doesn't feel authentic. It feels like it's just a little show that's not really meant to convey the truth as much as it is to reinforce its audience. And when we start to feel like everything's fake, then how does that change the way we see each other? How does it change the way we see society and ourselves? Do we have weaker social contracts, maybe? Everything feels disposable, because when you reach the conclusion that 90% of everything you see is in some way fake or contrived, and you just need to scroll by, then how do you really take the remaining 10% seriously? It's like take the dating world. So if you treat everybody as disposable, like, swipe left, swipe right, there's no duty of obligation there, that's fine, until you realize that there's not really any sense of commitment at any point, because your entire view of relationships has turned into something transactional, where you think, I'm just going to continue to engage with the content until I decide that it's not interesting, and then I will move on. People who don't like AI art, they will tell you a lot of things about how AI is stealing creativity. And thinking about that, wouldn't it be better to have something that's not perfect, but a person put hours of their time into trying to create a piece of artwork? Isn't that better than something which at a glance looks like it is aesthetically pleasing and beautiful, but that there's not really any spirit behind it, and when you really look at it, you understand that a computer just used an algorithm to create it over the course of 3 seconds? Even if the two of those things are superficially similar, I think that we would agree that the one that has human love and effort put into it is more meaningful. And no matter what our topic is, I think we can all agree that our technology-driven era has made us pivot away from content that feels meaningful and shifted more toward content that's easy to consume. And I don't necessarily know what the solution to that is, but I do think being aware of it is a step in the right direction. And I think being a content creator instead of just a content propagator is also something that's important, because as we find ourselves in a sea of things that are maybe fake, things that are maybe generated just for views, things that are maybe created by AI or bots. There's something refreshing about just having a conversation and engaging with real people and knowing that the content that you're creating or viewing is actually made by a human without any agenda on the other side. In any case, as always, thanks for watching. Till next time.